problems when they're small, and we usually don't. And so this column is encouragement to people to say, tackle the problems that are small, that are aggravating, that are annoying, for two reasons. Number one, because they'll get big if you don't. But number two, because it's a way to build problem solving and leadership skills. It's how I started. It's how most problem solvers and leaders start. Not with the big, huge problem, but with the smaller, more manageable problem.
Well, let's start with that last.
And then I also point out in this column. Go ahead.
No, please.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I want to talk about was one of the advantages of problem solving, as you said, is getting some practice.
Yes. Problem solving is a skill, just as leadership is a skill. And like any skill, you have to learn it and practice it. Like any new skill, you start at the beginning with something small, not at the end with something huge. The other thing I point out in this column is that people closest to the problem always understand it best. Always. And so if you want to solve problems, you need to talk to the people close to the problem who understand it, who are impacted by it, because all the time they will have good ideas about how to make it better. That's how I got my start as a leader without even knowing that's how I was starting, and I encourage others to get their start that way as well.
Yeah, I'm going to resist at this point the temptation to go back to politics and the structure of government and a federal system that sometimes Washington doesn't have all the answers.
Yes.
Sometimes you're better off at the local level. At least that's a personal view of mine. But at the same time, you have a framework, a rubric, as it were, about how you can take on these problems.
Yes, and we've talked about these tools before, but I use something that I call the current state, future state analysis, which is really a tool to help people clearly understand what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and then as well to lay out what does this problem solved look like. What is the future state? The leadership framework is a tool so that you understand all the things that have to happen to get a problem actually solved, so that you don't lose track of where you are in the problem-solving process, which can happen because problems get complex and things don't happen exactly the way you anticipate them. And so the leadership framework is about both making sure you're thinking through it all and as well keeping on track so that you actually make it to the future state you envision where a problem has been solved and change for the better has occurred.
Carly, how do you make sure the problem stays solved? Because there's sometimes you think you solved the problem and it keeps coming back at you.
Well, that's right. And by the way, that's why the tools are important. Because a lot of times what we'll do is we'll kind of paper over the problem and think we've solved it, or we attack a symptom, not a cause, or we reorganize around the problem so that someone else is in charge of it, when in fact we actually haven't tackled it or solved it at all. And so that's why to start problem solving, you have to really identify fully what the problem is and what it would look like if the problem were truly solved. And that's where the tools come in. But it's also, David, where asking people who are close to the problem for their insight comes in. Because if you're someone who's impacted by the problem and close to it, you actually desperately want it solved. You can't afford to just paper it over. All the way back to your offhand comment about the federal government, yes, indeed, Washington doesn't have all the answers. It's why you and I have talked about block granting money or sending decision-making authority and money closer to the problem, because people understand it better there. It's true in every organization as well.
Carly, you said that small problems almost inevitably grow into bigger problems. At the same time, my experience, at least, was you run out of time before you run out of problems. There's just almost an unlimited number of them. How do you pick and choose? You got to have a priority. Right. Which one's first, which one's second, which one's third?
Yes, well, absolutely right. And sometimes, of course, you don't have to do it all yourself. I do think that leaders and aspiring leaders tend to think if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. So there is an aspect of prioritization around what really needs my attention and what could help develop problem-solving skills in others by delegating or directing them to tackle a problem that impacts them more than it impacts you. But obviously, the higher up you go in an organization, the more the big problems are going to come to you. Let's face it, in most organizations, people actually don't want to escalate problems. They'd either rather hide them or solve them themselves. So if you're sitting up in a C-suite and a problem has come to you, it's probably because no one else can solve it without the breadth of influence and span of control that someone in the C-suite has, or the access to resources for that matter.
And the way that the problem comes framed to you may not be the right framing. I mean, some of this is how you conceptualize the problem. Well, back when I practiced law, we used to have this expression, if you can't fix it, you feature it. When you're writing a brief, if it's a really tricky problem, often if you bring it up front and feature it, sometimes problems can turn into real opportunities.
Absolutely right, and that is one of my favorite expressions. If you can't fix it, feature it. I use it all the time. The flip of that is, sometimes problems really are problems, but if we're too far away from them, we don't understand it. So every time I had a customer service problem in any organization I led, including the gigantic Hewlett-Packard, I would go sit with customer service reps because they understood that problem best. They were the ones sitting on the phone day after day with customers, and they could give me insight, and others insight into a real problem that we didn't have sitting in headquarters.
Yeah, also, a critical point you've just pointed to is, what are you solving the problem for? What are you solving the equation for? What's the end goal? In your case, it was for the customers, which makes a good deal of sense. Thank you so much. It's always such a treat to have you with us. It's Carly Fiorina of Carly Fiorina Enterprises and Unlocking Potential. And that does it for this day and this week on Balance of Power. I'm David Weston, and this is Bloomberg.
Don't miss Sound On with Joe Matthew today at 5 on Bloomberg 99.1. Joe and the team will break down the latest news from Washington and beyond. That's Sound On today at 5 on Bloomberg 99.1 and 105.7 HD2.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat, brought to you by Geico. Last year, Black and Latino entrepreneurs nationwide saw increased revenue growth. That's according to Ernst & Young, which commissioned a survey tracking this, titled The Entrepreneur's Paradox, How Black and Latino Entrepreneurs Are Balancing Growth and Uncertainty. So let's bring in E&Y America's private leader, Lee Henderson. What was the most surprising part of the survey?
About 80% of the companies in the survey saw some of the best results they've ever seen in their business over the last 12 months.
So what's one big way this is playing out?
These companies are finally getting a chance with working capital to invest in their business. So that will help them level up a little bit to be able to really be competitive.
But there's another side to this, Lee, the thought that this investment may be a trend.
Why it's really a paradox, the flip side of that is that a lot of them are concerned that this is short term, and as soon as we go back to sort of the status quo as we were a couple of years ago, they're going to see those results flip back.
I'm Bloomberg's Renita Young on the Black Business Beat.
Bloomberg traffic on weather every 15 minutes. Problems in Stafford on 95 North. All lanes are shut down between Courthouse Road and Garrisonville Aquia due to a serious accident. Traffic is jam-packed from the Centerport Parkway. And also watch out for delays southbound in Fredericksburg near Plank Road with the work zone in the right lane. In Germantown, you will find a portion of Great Seneca Highway is closed northbound between Klopper Road and Middlebrook Road. That due to a serious accident. Follow police direction there. Also, there is an accident on the shoulder on the outer loop between the Springfield Interchange and Van Dorn Street. It is just on the shoulder, however, it is causing a brief delay. In the district, keep in mind that 2nd Street is closed between East Street and Maryland Avenue due to barrier maintenance work taking place. And also, Central Avenue is closed near 53rd Street in Southeast. That due to utility work. Also, watch out for a work zone westbound on the freeway at the 11th Street Bridge, causing delays from M Street. And now the Bloomberg 99.1 4-day weather forecast. For today, mostly cloudy and breezy. Showers possible by evening. Very mild, though. High 65 to 70. For tonight, rain, which could be heavy at times and windy. Chance of thunderstorms, lows in the mid-50s. For tomorrow, mostly sunny and breezy. Highs in the mid-50s. And for Saturday and Sunday, mostly sunny. Highs between 45 and 50. Right now, 63 degrees in Washington. This report is sponsored by Blindster. Looking for a great deal on blinds, shades, and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters, and they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com. I'm Beth Lerner, traffic and weather on Bloomberg 99.1.
Broadcasting to the nation's capital, this is WDCH-FM, Bowie, Baltimore, Washington. WJZ-FM HD2 Catonsville, Bloomberg 99.1. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Today. He's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all declining. We are trading very close to session lows. Stocks slumping not only here in the U.S., but they slumped around the globe as traders seek safety in the bond market and other haven assets amid concern about geopolitical risks and the economic impacts of central bank policy. Most major groups in the S&P 500 are lower. Tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 index is now down by 2%. The S&P is down 63. That represents a drop of 1.4%. The Dow is down 417 now, lower by 1.2%. The slide in NASDAQ continues today, down another 282 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a drop right now of 2%. 10-year yield 1.97%. Spot gold up 1.5%, 18.97 the ounce, while West Texas Intermediate crude oil selling off by 2.5%, 91.28 right now for a barrel of WTI. Well, as for the pace and size of interest rate increases, Kathleen Bastianic is Director of U.S. Macro Investor Services at Oxford Economics.
I was a little leery about this parlor game of 5, 6, 7 rate hikes, but I'm also quite impressed with how well the financial markets have handled pricing in, 6 or 7 rate hikes. So we actually just decided that 7 is probably a good enough estimate for this year.
Walmart surpassed Wall Street's quarterly profit expectations and unveiled an upbeat sales outlook for the current fiscal year. Walmart shares up now by 4%. Cisco Systems higher after giving a bullish forecast for the current quarter and boosting its share buyback program. Cisco up by 3.7%. DoorDash shares springing back above their listing price right now. DoorDash up by 11.6% after last night's earnings report. Recapping, S&P down 1.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Bloomberg Quick Takes Tim Stenovic on Bloomberg Radio.
Yeah, it's a full house in our Interactive Brokers studio on this Thursday, February 17th. Welcome, everybody. We are live in our Interactive Brokers studio and also streaming on YouTube. Got some broad-based selling again, Tim.
Yeah, we do. This again over geopolitical concerns, certainly front and center today. We're going to have the latest from Creedy and Katie in just a minute.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Also talking the restaurant space, we'll do that with the CEO of Red Lobster, all the shrimp you can eat.
But how much shrimp can you buy these days? What are seafood costs? And how much is it going to cost to pay those employees to get to those Red Lobsters?
Details. Also, this week's Business Week cover story, the pill that's safer than Tylenol, folks, but it is impossible to get.
That's the cover story, as you mentioned, Carol. Earnings after the close, too. Roku and Shake Shack. We'll bring those to you live when we get them.
And the CEO of Watchfinder on finding pre-owned treasures. First up, though, let's get to the Market Drivers Report. Let's set that Business Week agenda on this Thursday. As to mention, in the house, Creedy and Katie. Creedy Gupta, markets correspondent at Bloomberg, along with Katie Greifeld, Bloomberg News processor reporter. Tim's co-anchor over on Quick Take. Creedy, welcome. Creedy, market trade. We're down.
We are down. What's interesting to me is, this is all geopolitical risk, right? You have earnings that are coming in fairly hot. Walmart, fantastic example. Cisco, another great example.
And Walmart's up.
Cisco, I believe, is up as well. And yet, a lot of these companies that are coming out saying, well, we have really great profits. We're so cash rich, we're going to go engage in buybacks, which is a big part of Walmart's report. Essentially, they're increasing their buybacks by $10 billion.
Cisco increasing it, or reauthorization.
billion.
Was it 18 or 15? 15 billion.
18 billion total. It's a 15 billion increase.
So they were at $3 billion before previously announced, and then announced an additional 15.
That's a mega. When that crossed last night when we were breaking the earnings with our TV colleagues, it was just like
it's like everything else out the window.
Yeah, it's all that
$15
kind of seemed to matter.
Increase in share buyback.
And this is something you're seeing across earnings, right? This isn't just Cisco, it's not just Walmart. Everyone is saying, well, you know what? but we were able to finance at super low rates. We were able to, in addition, pass on a lot of our costs to our consumers. And now we have a lot of money that either you go out and you buy something, right? Microsoft, Activision is the one that comes to mind, or you go into the market and you buy your shares. And that's news that technically should be moving the stock market higher. And we are down, and we are down big, and it comes down to that geopolitical risk.
Hey, Katie Greifeld, come on in here because you're watching the bond market. What are the signals you're seeing?
Wearing really cool pants, might I just point to.
Thank
You can't really
so
jump
much
up.
for saying that.
Are you gonna...
Stripe down the sides.
I mean, we are on YouTube. I could jump high enough. But in any case, the bond market, yields not jumping. You're seeing a big haven bid, especially coming to the long end. And I mean, this whole situation, I've been talking about it with analysts and investors. It really seems like a recipe for curve flattening, because if you do have higher oil prices, that's going to push up front end yields, even if you see some of those rate hike bets get pulled out. Meanwhile, you have that haven bid going into the long end, sending yields lower. That's a curve flattening setup. That's going to be an interesting pickle for the Fed, something definitely that they're thinking about.
Pickle, I've never seen that in the FOMC minutes.
Not yet.
Did you do control for fine for search for the word pickle yesterday?
Balance sheet, pickle, all those words.
Transitory, no, pickle. Creedy, you know what's interesting though? You often focus on things like the oil markets, which can be telling us a lot. Certainly has a geopolitical element to it, no doubt about it, and economic. I think at times like this, we need to go back to fundamentals. What's going on in the economy? What's going on in terms of earnings growth? What's going on in terms of the balance sheets for corporate America that ultimately will play out in the financial markets?
Yeah, when we're talking about fundamentals, what's tricky is that you could talk about fundamentals, but the market isn't trading on them. We're going back to these macro themes of trading. So fundamentally, margins are good, earnings are good, buybacks are good. But one of the big concerns going into not just the fourth quarter, but I think going into this next quarter is going to be, can the consumer continue to withstand eating the costs, essentially, that these companies are passing along?
It depends. It feels like we get a mixed bag when it comes to that, right? There are some companies that can push the costs through, and then there are others that cannot.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like it's almost too easy for the consumer to eat those costs right now. And I think one of the best ways to think about it is simply that they are getting paid more. It doesn't seem like it because we like to look at real wages, and especially in financial media, we love to be like, oh, let's adjust for inflation. But at the end of the day, people are seeing more in their bank accounts, more in their paychecks. And when you see number, whether it's inflation adjusted or not, bigger than the number you used to get, right? You spend, right? You say, oh, well, I have $10 extra. Doesn't matter what inflation is doing. I've got $10 extra. I'm going to spend it. And it's that psychology that continues to feed into essentially these sales, these revenues. But the question is, how long does that continue?
Yeah, Katie and I actually spoke to a CFRA analyst who covers Walmart on Quick Take Stock earlier today. He made the point that Walmart, for example, able to eat a lot of those higher costs because they have the leverage to actually go in and negotiate better rates. And what other companies see as inflationary, Walmart doesn't see as inflationary. Hey, Katie, we got to talk crypto and the risk-off move today. What are you seeing reflected in the crypto trade?
I mean, it's broadly the same thing that we saw yesterday. I mean, you look at Bitcoin right now, down over 5%, below $42,000 a coin. There's not much to say other than, I mean, basically you're looking at a leveraged bet on tech stocks right now. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, this market loves round numbers. We've talked about that before. It